And welcome back to the Friday Night Lights Championship Weekend Show. And Scott, right now it's time to talk about some gridiron greats.
Earlier this month, the Saginaw County Sports Hall of Fame introduced perhaps its greatest class, a high school football heavy class that was headlined by a couple of NFL players from Saginaw High School, in the late Charles Rogers and, of course, Lamar Woodley. And for Woodley, he could not have picked a better person to be enshrined with.
I feel great going in, definitely going in with Charles Rogers. Charles Rogers is somebody that inspired me and motivated me to become who I was today on the football field, or who I was on the football field. So to go in with Charles Rogers is unbelievable. That's a dream come true for me.
And there's no question that Rogers going in is well-deserved and overdue. An athlete who dominated on the gridiron, the hardwood, and in track. He won state titles in the 100, 200, and 400 meters and was part of the 1999 Saginaw High State Championship football team, along with Woodley and Ron Stanley.
The best athlete to come out of Saginaw, out of this area. And I'll say it to this day, and I'll say it 20 years from now. You know, when we have more great athletes come, Charles Rogers' name will always come up, you know, in my book, as one of the greatest athletes to come out of this city.
Charles Rogers. Somebody goes, who's Charles Rogers?
The greatest of all time. You know, the greatest from my era for sure, but in my opinion, the greatest of all time. He could have went pro in any sport. That's just my opinion. The guy scored 25-plus points in the Final Four in basketball. We will never see that type of guy given ability ever again.
While Rogers was drafted second overall by the Lions in 2003, Woodley would begin a dominating career with the Steelers, getting drafted in the second round in 2007 out of Michigan. And while Rogers kept opposing coaches up at night, Woodley gave them nightmares.
One of the greatest athletes ever in the state of Michigan, in the Midwest, some may say in the nation. He was a top 5 recruit, played football, basketball, and ran track, could do it all, could dunk a basketball, could dribble a basketball, and most of all a winner. He won on all 3 levels, a state championship at high school, in football, Rose Bowls, All-American, probably be in the College Football Hall of Fame. He will never be duplicated, in my opinion, in this county.
It's just obvious, you know. He's probably one of the most decorated athletes to come out of Saginaw in the past 20 to 25 years.
And it would take legitimately 4 or 5 minutes just to read all the accomplishments that both Rogers and Woodley earned during their careers. And you can do that with a trip to the Saginaw County Sports Hall of Fame at the Castle Museum.
You'll definitely want to, you'll want to check that out for sure. There's a ton of great things to look at too. And Woodley and Rogers, they weren't just the only big names to enter the Saginaw Hall this year, as the class that was loaded with some gridiron greats. Joining them was former Nouvelle head coach Mike Boyd, and he actually joins his uncle Pat Boyd and his father Smokey Boyd as the members of the Hall. It was a rare family accomplishment. All Mike did was guide the Panthers to 3 state titles in 5 championship game appearances. The Panthers had 7 undefeated regular seasons under his watch. He finished his career with an overall record, 174 wins, only 14 losses. And he was excited to make his induction into the Hall, being a family affair.
I'm very honored to be going into a hall, joining my father and my Uncle Pat. So that's very special to me. You know, especially, I guess, in light of the fact that my mother and father recently passed, knowing that I was already going to be joining my father. I mean, that's the, yeah, everybody can say, you know, the only reason I'm here is because of my parents, but I'm truly only here in the Hall of Fame because of my parents.
Other high school football players making the Saginaw County Hall this year include the 1961 to 1965 St. Charles football teams. Over 5 seasons, the Bulldogs racked up an impressive 43-1-1 record, including a 31-game unbeaten streak. And also going into the hall was a pair of Arthur Hill greats. John Decker led the Jacks to an SVL title in 1966 before heading to Nebraska, where he played on the 1970 national championship team. Ron Rummel is probably the greatest team leader to come out of the Hill. Rummel was the quarterback for the 1973 team that went undefeated and unscored upon. The Lumberjacks scoring 443 points and giving up none during the season. He would later go on to star at Central Michigan University. Also enshrined was Frankenmuth multi-sport athlete Nicole Bayrayu, who attended Michigan State. She played basketball, volleyball, hockey, and rowing. And rounding out this year's class is Mr. YMCA, the late Max Fisher. He dedicated 56 years of his life serving the community by running the Y in Saginaw.
And just absolutely a great class of athletes for Saginaw County, the Hall of Fame, of course. And the one thing about Rummel's 1973 Arthur Hill Lumberjacks team that is amazing, of course, is they went undefeated and didn't even give up a point. That still just fascinates me.
I still can't believe that. I can't believe that was actually a thing that they did. I had to ask you twice about that. Like, really?
That's the truth. And, of course, it was a pleasure for yours truly to be the master of ceremonies for this year's Saginaw County Sports Hall of Fame, a main event, as they say.
Yes, and we're not done here on the Friday Night Lights Championship Weekend show. We still got the sweet plays of the week coming up this year, and now it's our version, I guess you could say, of One Shining Moment. And we've got a job for you as well to discuss the critical state of high school official shortages. But first, a little pink out in the Mount Pleasant student section.